gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so look, I didn't talk about this yesterday because I was too annoyed by it. And I was overwhelmed by the stupidity of it all. And I still kind of am. So I'm going to try to keep this one short. I say that all the time and I'm very bad at it. But genuinely, I don't have that much to say about this topic. So Hasan Piker and Ethan Klein finally did their debate. This has been in the works for a long time now because they used to be friends. They used to do a show together called Leftovers. Their friendship essentially split over the issue of Israel-Palestine, and ever since then, it has been nonstop, sneak disses at each other, talking about each other's content on stream, kind of like both of them chasing each other down in this immature streamer type of way. So I'm becoming very fascinated and disturbed by the world of streamers. It's not something that I pay a lot of attention to, but doing the type of content that I do, it spills over, and I get a glimpse at how those type of communities are different from YouTube communities. And I'm early into the building of a YouTube community, but I've been observing them for quite a long time. And so Twitch is something that I only have sort of ancillary experience with. But it seems to me the simplest way to put it is that because of how much time these guys spend streaming, how much time they're online, all the different content they consume, but also just the sheer amount of hours that they're broadcasting to other people's screens, it creates a relationship with those content creators that's so much more powerful and so much more parasocial than usual. And I think that's the case with all streamers. I'm not making any political delegations, and really content creators in general. YouTube is certainly not innocent of that. But I think on YouTube, there's a few more degrees of separation somehow. Like, you guys can drop comments, but you can't live feed chat criticisms, arguments, spam to me while I'm talking, which is good because it allows me to keep my train of thought and say things that I mean to say, turn it into a product, put it out, and then come back to it later. And with the streaming stuff, you don't have that. It's all instantaneous, beaming yourself out to the world. And I think that leads to people saying dumb things. It leads to people overreacting. It leads to sometimes cheap content, in my opinion. And it also seems to lead to extremely, extremely animated fan bases. I think that's the case with both Hasan and Ethan in different ways. So these guys debated for 5 hours on Friday. 5 hours. That's insane. I don't know how anybody has the energy to do that. Debating is not easy on its own. But then considering the amount of shouting and talking over each other that both of these guys were doing, I have no idea how either of them had the energy to do it. And so this is why I originally didn't want to talk about it and why I don't have that much to say about it. I watched most of the debate. I agree with Hasan over Ethan pretty much 100% at this point. And the reason, there's a very specific reason. It's because I agree with Hasan's position on the issues. And that's the thing. Most of you guys out there who are Ethan fans, I'm going to be talking directly to Ethan fans during this video. Not because I reach that many of them, I don't think, but I do reach some. Every time I talk about Ethan Klein, I get some people in my comments defending him, and that's fine. But I want to talk directly to you guys about Ethan. This is a bit of an intervention, okay? And I know Hasan's not perfect. I've talked about that on this channel before. But for the most part, when it comes to the issues, he gets it right. And that's what I care about. I don't care about Ethan's personal grievances or the way he tries to redirect the conversation. So look, this was a 5-hour-long conversation. So I know that many, many different points were made and tried to back each other into different corners at different times. I know That was the whole debate. It was fucking exhausting. I get that there are other moments in this debate that some of you guys might want to highlight or whatever. That's fine, I guess, but I truly, truly do not care about the gotchas and the owned you and the you said this and we said this and who said this. I don't give a fuck. I'm worried about the issues. There's a material reality to this in which many people are dying. The situation has changed significantly over the past several months, and this conversation is definitely a distraction from that. The only reason that I care more for what Hasan has to say is that he's focused more on the reality of the situation. So let me play this clip real quick. This is a good indication of how this conversation went.
So anyway, you say it's a weird cosmic fluke. Personally, if I think it was a weird cosmic fluke, you say basically it's not a swastika. The difference between the Hindu symbol and the... Not. Okay, right. The difference between the Hindu symbol and the Nazi swastika... I'll finish what I said. Yeah, I'm a Jewish man. I depicted a swastika, a tasteless joke on Idub's shirt 10 years ago. Yeah. You said this is the swastika sword, and you keep it in your house, and you use it and pose it in photos, attacking a Jewish man. The fact that you can't even concede that looks bad.
As looking like a swastika when my friend picked it up. If I genuinely thought it was a swastika memorabilia, do you think I would keep it in my house?
Dude, you're being so obtuse. I know it's not a swastika, right? And I know you know it's not a swastika, but it is literally a swastika also. Because the difference between a swastika and that Hindu symbol is this. You see what I'm doing? This is the...
Is Ramallah a part of Israeli territory?
I mean, it's complicated, right? It's under occupation. No, I don't think so, but it's under occupation, right?
Okay, so why was your wife in Ramallah?
Maybe are getting a terrorist that killed civilians. She sat in a car.
It's not complicated, Ethan.
She sat in a car and didn't even leave it and never did it again.
Your wife participated in an illegal raid according to international human rights. That is the reality. Now, I understand.
Are you upset if this person killed like a child? Would you be upset if this person they arrested like stabbed people? Like you don't know what you're talking about.
Talk about how fucked up that was.
Okay, fine. My wife's a terrorist, bro. What the fuck? It's so boring.
No, stop. Listen to my words. If she were to talk about
my
how
wife is a terrorist.
As many former IDF vets have on breaking the silence, if she talked about the night raid that she participated in the same way that
just like Frogan says, I don't hate only the ones that regret it.
I would have no issue with her.
Do you hope she gets PTSD too?
Change. Okay.
I don't condone the raid, but I mean, see, neither of us have any information about like what actually happened. You know what I mean?
There is you don't understand. She is illegally there. She is not supposed to be there.
She's a terrorist.
It does not matter. Her and her entire brigade was not supposed to be there. That is an act of terror.
I don't think she knew what they were doing.
Fact, what she participated
I don't think she knew what they were doing or where they were going.
What she participated in is...
So there you have it. So look, what I'm trying to highlight here is that whether you think Hasan is right or wrong doesn't change the fact that what he's focused on is a material reality. He's talking about something that is bigger than himself, and in reality, for him as a American Twitch streamer, doesn't really have that much to do with him. He's talking about an issue that goes far beyond his own well-being and personal interest. And that's what Hasan does as a political streamer. And, you know, not everybody likes him. Some people who also dislike Ethan Klein dislike Hasan for various reasons. I don't understand all of them. I think for the most part, Hasan is unobjectionable, although he does say, he says things that get him in trouble sometimes for good reason. But at the end of the day, Ethan comes from a different sort of background when it comes to making content. Ethan's, what he built his platform doing is exactly what he's doing in this debate, where he highlights small moments, something somebody said, something somebody did, and then he uses that as a sort of gotcha moment to bring the hammer down to whatever. So this is what he did in that content nuke video that he made about Hasan. I talked about the content nuke. If you want to hear my opinion on that, go back to that video. But the reality is that I don't think that Ethan specifically doing that type of content is valuable for the culture, because he's not making arguments. It's all about he's operating from the preordained position, the pre-decided position, that by showing a clip of Hasan talking to a certain person, or a clip of this supposed tier list at TwitchCon or whatever, he's assuming that this is a career-ending moment, and so he doesn't have to say anything else about it. He doesn't have to connect it to any larger issue. This idea of like a Sabra tier list and whether him being placed next to Ben Shapiro on a list is anti-Semitic because they're both Jews. Like, it's just, it's tiny fragments of nothing that are not related to anything. Even if he's trying to relate it to a broader issue of anti-Semitism, it's like, still, what's the pattern here? You're not pointing to any real pattern. He spent like 20 minutes arguing with Hasan about a sword because the sword had a symbol that looked like a swastika on it. And, you know, I felt that like Hasan could have focused more on the fact that that symbol is obviously not a swastika. It's an Asian symbol called a manji. And Ethan knows this, and he admits this in the debate. Hasan knows this. Ethan's whole point is that Hasan called it a swastika sword at some point, and so that means they're purposely, even though it was posted by somebody else, he's purposely brandishing a swastika sword. Why? To signal anti-Semitism. The reality is it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense, and he's trying to create a thread of anti-Semitism within the pro-Palestine movement that simply isn't there. If you want to say that the rhetoric or the way that certain people in the Middle East talk about Jews is anti-Semitic, that is true. I don't think it's like materially relevant right now because the dynamic of the situation is so outsized. But the idea that there's like secret dog whistling going on, signaling to Hitler the way neo-Nazis do, is just, it's absurd. I'm sorry. It's not connected to the point right now. And what it is a way for Ethan to distract away from a larger conversation about Palestine. Even if you think that he fully agrees about Palestine and he, you know, wants to take the righteous position about it, he's still splitting hairs in a way that is impeding progress on that conversation. He could be focusing his stream, focusing his content, focusing his audience on making a material change to the Israel-Palestine conflict, and instead he's focused on things like getting Twitch streamers banned and, you know, for anti-Semitism. And I oppose anti-Semitism strongly. I always have my entire life. I've grown up around Jewish people. I knew, you know, Jewish people who were going on birthright trips when I was growing up, and I have Jewish blood in me. I'm not Jewish, but I have Jewish heritage. And so anti-Semitism is not a joke to me. I'm well educated on it. And I know Ethan is too. But he's turning it into a joke because, you know, his way of going about this content, what it is it just comes from a background of commentary that's much more unserious. That's simply what Ethan knows how to do. If you look at his behavior in this debate, it was all a sort of a form of content where he thought he was just going to gotcha Hasan over and over again. Hasan is trying to talk about whether the IDF is a terrorist organization, what the definition of Zionism is. And Ethan wants to go back to talking about an iDubbbz video and this little picture of a sword and this little, you know, thumbnail. And it's like, even if you take those things very serious examples of anti-Semitism, which I do not, I don't take them as examples of anti-Semitism at all. But even if you think that, it's still a distraction. There's still a larger conversation happening here that Ethan is running away from in everything that he says. And once the conversation progressed to a place of talking about those issues in a more concrete way, that was where Ethan was getting backed into corners, or, you know, telling Hasan that he was boring. And it was always going back to this person, this said this about you, and you said this about them, and that's why they're a fan of you. No, they're not a fan of me. And Hasan got sucked into that too, and that's why I think this debate lasted 4 fucking hours, for almost 5 hours, frankly, is because Hasan probably went into it knowing that he was going to have to address some of these things, but had to try to, you know, avoid making a whole conversation about that. And Ethan's goal was to make the whole conversation about that. So my fundamental point is here that Palestine is the most material issue here. Anti-Semitism is an issue, but like Ethan himself has said, it's a separate issue. So we should not be distracting from the conversation of the Palestinian genocide by talking about supposed anti-Semitism of this person and that person, especially when there's no real evidence there. There's nothing of material reality there. And, you know, there's thousands of people being slaughtered in Palestine right now. And Trump has facilitated for the unmitigated destruction of that in a way that even Joe Biden didn't. And the Israeli government has now come out and said that Biden facilitated their genocide way more than they ever even thought. And Trump is now upping the ante and taking it even further and telling them that they have the right to completely obliterate Gaza, take the land, displace everybody there. Trump doesn't give a fuck about them. So the situation has escalated significantly in the past few months. The House in the United States is about to introduce a bill called the IGO Israel Boycott Act, which basically would make it illegal to participate in boycotts of Israel and Israeli products like Sabra hummus. So that's a reality. That's a real law that they're trying to change in America right now. And based on this debate and most of Ethan's previous positions, he is more aligned with that than any type of Palestinian liberation. And that's something real and concrete and material that's happening right now. And Ethan Klein's not equipped to talk about it because it doesn't fit in this narrative of his own self-aggrandizement and victimization. The only other thing that I have to say about this really is that I know I'm probably reaching some Ethan Klein fans with this video. If any of you have made it to the end here and are still listening, I know you're probably mad at me. I know you disagree with most of what I've said already, probably. I know you've probably left some comments already. Here's all I ask of you. When you're watching Ethan Klein, just keep in mind, you don't have to agree with me or Hasan or Sam Cedar. You don't have to watch our content. But just keep in mind, as you're watching Ethan, that what he's delivering to you is not serious political content. He is not equipped to deliver you serious political content. That's not what he aims to do. He would be much better suited if he would stop doing political content. And the reason he has become so focused on this issue of Zionism and anti-Semitism in the context of Palestine is because that is something that he has a background in, that he feels that he can speak on forcefully. None of this other stuff qualifies for that. His education, his information that he has to work with on these issues is minor. And so he's using some of that to communicate about these issues, but at the end of the day, there's no real depth there because that's not what Ethan does. And if you like him, if you like his content, that's fine. But I want you to have it in your mind as you're watching this person. Ask yourself, is this guy providing me any value? Is this guy helping to inform me on these subjects, helping me to take these subjects more seriously and be more well informed? Because that's what matters when it comes to political content. It's not about who's right or who's wrong, or who called CPS on Ethan or who's harassing Ethan. All that. I'm not saying that Ethan's the only political content creator that talks about those things. He's certainly not. I'm not saying that Hasan is not guilty of that too, but it's far more Ethan's focus. And I just ask you to consider the fact that is harming your knowledge on these subjects and not helping it. And just keep that with you and just see if that's true. You don't ever have to come back and tell me what you think. None of that. But just keep that with you. And if you don't want to watch Hasan or me or somebody else, that's fine. Watch CNN, watch MSNBC. There's better sources for you to get news and political information from than Ethan Klein. And even those left liberal sources are better than what Ethan Klein gives you because Ethan Klein has no discipline. He has no focus. I would say that about both of them, frankly, but Hasan at least has message discipline. He stays on point. He stays focused on the issue that's important, and that's why he's less focused on personal drama and grievances. And some of you might just need to grow up a little bit, frankly, because Ethan Klein's kind of content is aimed at people who are less serious about politics because it's coming from somebody who's less serious about politics. And I just ask you to evaluate that over time as you consider consuming Ethan's content. I assume he's going to keep talking about politics. Hopefully this conversation doesn't keep going in circles about Palestine and anti-Semitism, but it's probably going to. So just observe that and observe the fact that other people who are talking about issues on a day-to-day basis, they're moving on. They're passing you by. In terms of their information, how well equipped they are in debates, what they're actually talking about, because Ethan is moving in a circular direction, and he's not only is he not equipped to talk about these issues, he's not even really equipped to inform himself properly, because I just don't think that's what his interest is. I would say that for a lot of streamers, that they just turn on the stream and then they start researching and talking about stuff in real time, and that leads to people saying a lot of stupid things. But when it comes to Hasan, he's been doing that about politics for a lot longer. He's better at it than Ethan. So that's all I have to say about this. It was a shit show. I think streamers, it was definitely an example of all of the downfall, the pitfalls of streaming as a form of content. If that's your cup of tea, that's fine. I think Hasan is doing mostly good work. But when it comes to these debates, man, I don't know. We got to find a way to do it. The Ethan and Sam Cedar debate was much better. It was much more issues focused because Ethan doesn't have a million tiny little grievances with Sam Cedar. So, I mean, to anybody who's wondering if they should watch, I would say don't worry about the Ethan and Hasan debate. If you really want to watch something, watch Sam Cedar and Ethan, because that was a much more informative debate. And again, Ethan, if he wants to keep talking about politics, then he's going to, but I just don't think he should. I don't think that's what he's meant for. And I ask the people who are fans of his in his audience to allow yourself to have that criticism of him, that he shouldn't be talking about these things. He's not providing you that much value in doing so, and you might be best to move on. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. Posting all kinds of content there, like book reviews, movie reviews, music. If you like the beats that play in the back of these podcasts, all of that's posted there. Plus my EPs. I just dropped a new EP called Dead Internet Theory. That's available on all streaming platforms, and that was available first for members only. So if you want access to that, become a member. And if there's other stuff that you'd like to see as members only content, let me know and we'll figure some things out.